reassuring setting of a vicarage in Hull, I spoke to the Reverend Willis. He is a family man with both feet firmly on the ground, but he is seriously worried by today's fascination with the Ouija board, seances, and witches' covens. He believes that this presents the church with a real problem.
Clergy all over the country have been deluged with people coming to them for help because either it's induced a mental breakdown with a lot of people ending up in mental hospitals, a lot of people are driven to attempted suicide in this area at any rate, and in other areas I know there have been several cases of real suicide from people playing around with the Ouija boards even, or just consulting mediums or fortune tellers.
Have you yourself ever had real evidence that makes you believe in the devil?
In one particular case, I remember, a family had rung up the Samaritan service, who in turn asked myself and another priest to go along and help a family who were in terror out in the street. We got the family back into the house, and after having talked to them for some time, one of the women complained that something was around her, a horrible coldness, and could I help her? Could I go over there and pray with her? And I went across the room to her, and she began to say, please help me, because it's around me. I've gone all cold. It's all around me. Please help. Please help me. Please help me. And she began to struggle with something around her throat. She began to physically choke. And I read plenty of times in fiction of people saying, that their eyes bulged in terror. But this is the first time I ever really saw it myself. Her eyes came right out of the sockets and bulged like this. Help me. And she was struggling. And I thought, well, is this some sort of psychological flip? Some hysteria. So for a while, a few seconds, I didn't do anything. But eventually she got so desperate and was obviously choking that I thought I must do something. And I must assume that this is something evil around her. And I went over to her and said, in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, I command you to come out of her and go to that place appointed for you. And nothing happened. And for a moment I was puzzled. But then I remember reading that sometimes people involved in exorcisms have a big struggle. So I kept on with this same command, on and on, several times, over perhaps 10 or 15 seconds, which is quite a long time, really. And eventually, she collapsed on the floor. We took a glass of water to her and brought her around, but for a quarter of an hour, she wouldn't talk about it. She just couldn't talk about it. She was so frightened. But eventually we said, well, what happened? And she said, something just completely took over me. I felt as though I was being pushed out of myself. I'm convinced I would have died if you hadn't begun to do something. And she said, I heard your voice in the dim distance praying. And gradually, she said, I seemed to come back into myself. And I said, what did you actually see or feel? And she said, the only thing I saw was a face which looked like a doll with staring eyes, absolutely hypnotizing me. I just couldn't take my eyes off it. And then I blacked out. Well, I prayed with her, prayed with the family. We eventually went and blessed the whole house. And after some time, they said, we feel completely at peace now. Whatever it is gone. I returned home and creeping upstairs with my shoes in my hand, found my wife wide awake, sat up in bed saying, "Phew, thank goodness you're back." I said, "Why, what's the matter?" She said, "I've had the most terrible nightmare of my life." I said, "Well, what was the matter?" She said, "Well, it was only a dream," but she said, "I felt there was something evil in the house attacking myself and the children." She said, "In my dream, I met it in the sitting room. I went downstairs and met it in the sitting room. When I woke up," she said, "I was so scared by it, and I went round and prayed with all the children, and I've been awake ever since." So I said, "Well, what was it that you broke? What was it you saw?" And she said, "Well, it was something horrible and evil, like a doll." God. So something, however you view it, happened, passed between the two houses. My wife didn't know. She knew I'd been called out on something, but she knew nothing of the circumstances we'd been dealing with. Somehow something flashed between the two houses, whether it was some telepathic vision of some kind, or whether it was evil hitting back at my family. of course, is open to controversy.
You don't think that possibly, because you are a member of the church and in a way associated with the devil and with evil, that you could induce this yourself?
I don't think so, because you see that the problem was there before I was ever called in.
Yes.
You know, I didn't go around and give them the idea that there could be some sort of possession. That they rang up the Samaritans and said, please, there's something in our house. Can you send us someone who'll help?
What can the church and what should the church do about the problem?
I think we have got to restudy Christian belief about evil, about the teaching of Christ about evil. After all, Christ gave 3 commands to the church: preach the gospel, heal the sick, and cast out evil. And we've rather neglected the casting out of evil. We haven't met much of it in the last 300 years. In Britain and Western Europe, not many people have dabbled in witchcraft or devil worship or even consulting fortune tellers to any great number. There always have been a few. But suddenly in the 20th century, we've got this occult explosion, everybody doing it, and it's a social problem.